I wanted to share a story with you today about the difference between a Democrat and a Republican. And I think that we can go back and compare a presidency uh, that really defines the difference between the two value systems. We had a epic financial downfall back when Herbert Hoover was president, and a lot of the farmers across the country had money in the bank, but the banks had invested the money, and when Wall Street fell, so did the bank. And what they offered the farmers and other people in the United States was nothing. They said, we're closing our doors. They wanted to know where their money was at so that they could continue to do what it was that was providing them their path in America to the American dream, whatever dream it was that they held dear. And Herbert Hoover decided that the best thing for him to do basically was go into a recluse mode and not really address some of the issues out there with the Americans that were starving and living in poverty. So America made one of the great decisions that it ever made, and it impacted us throughout history and will continue to impact us probably for the rest of the life of America, which is to change presidents. And they decided to vote into office, in my opinion, the greatest president that we've ever had in Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And when Roosevelt came in, there was a plethora of issues in the United States. But he stabilized the banks and was able to, through his weight with the government, financially back the banks and get them nursed back to health. When he did that, he provided one of the first services from the White House as far as a State of the Union. And he addressed some of the issues to let the people know through their radios that he was real. He was in Washington. He was their president, and that he could be trusted. And gave them an update as to what was going on, because most of them did not know. You have to remember, there was no TV and very little communication between Washington and all the constituents. So once he did that, Roosevelt came up with a plethora of ideas about how the Democratic Party was built to assist and to help its citizens in the United States. Because you have the people who are the haves and you have the people who struggle. And he believes that part of the American dream had a tax to it. And that tax was that we take some of our surplus and we help the downtrodden citizens of the United States. And he would take that tax that was imposed financially through people's W-2s and sales taxes, and he would fund programs. Programs meant to strengthen society by lending that helping hand out there, including things like FHA loans for homes and land, and things like Social Security disability, things like food stamps, things like programs to incentivize businesses to expand. and he inflated our government with a lot of these different programs. The conservatives, a lot of times, will attack those programs because that's really the statement that was made by the Democratic Party in one of our darkest times of history. Not only that, Franklin Delano Roosevelt also had to deal with the Japanese and the Germans during World War II in some very complex times. And he had to make some very difficult decisions as far as how to lead this country through World War II when it really wasn't recovered from World War I yet. Franklin Delano Roosevelt understood the path of America in its infancy, really, between, I'll say, 1850 and 1950. He knew that this country was still being molded in a direction of a unified nation that would be governed by the federal government. And he's seen the responsibilities that would be bestowed upon this government to assist and help its citizens. And as we did that, and we've seen the prosperity develop from it in the American economy after the war, of course, we understood the importance of building a stronger foundation and trying to make sure that the weakest links of the chain are reinforced so that we do not break. And since then, we have had very few times where our country has been on the brink of financial disaster because of a strong working class and a strong set of values out of Washington, D.C. Today, as we take a look at a lot of these programs, they have been added to in some frivolous campaigns as far as a lot of our restrictive policing, if you will. And we have to make sure that we don't use our programs for something that's not getting us anything in return as a country. So when you take a look at another conservative answer, which was Donald Trump's wall, at the end of it, all we have done is go into recluse of a problem that will affect us eventually, because we can't have South America's economies collapse. If that did happen, that wall would be of little value to us because of a lot of the other countries who would collapse in the ripple effect from their issues that they're having in Latin America. So I think it's a better idea and a more democratic idea. And I think that FDR in some ways would approve of what my idea is, which is to not build a wall, but to build stations or missions with the help of our Latin American friends through businesses like the oil companies located in the South, through businesses like entertainment, involving some of the World Soccer presence and involving some of the NFL and Major League Baseball presence, some of the NASCAR presence, and their financial stability to be able to take some of their surplus and to invest it back in that region between the United States and Mexico. I think that education is always the answer, and I think that we can build faith through these missions in what we are seeking long term, which is world peace. I think if you sit down and you ask yourself if Jesus Christ would support one of these ideas, it's obvious which one he would support. Because Jesus would never turn his back on struggling Americans or struggling non-Americans. What he would do is he would head to the hills of Galilee and hope that the word that he was preaching would spread about how to love thy neighbor, about how to reach out and to invest our monies in new medicines and try to alleviate some of the heartache and some of the sorrow felt by poor people that are indigenous to these North American borders. Thank you.